And specifically, would you have any advice for the president going forward in the next debate? Is there anything you think he should do differently? Do you think the attacks on Joe Biden's sons, for example, was a bridge too far? I mean, what is your advice to the president there about how he should tackle this next debate?
First, if you ask me about the debate, President Trump won the debate. Could it be more productive? Actually, my best advice is let Joe Biden talk. He is the Democratic Party. His ideas are far long gone. I think the more he talks, the more the American public would decide they don't want Joe Biden. Is there a reason why he puts a lid on almost most of his days? Is there a reason why he is hidden and not communicated? Is there a reason why he won't tell the American public who he'd point to the Supreme Court justice? Candidate Trump did that before the last election, so the public knew ahead of time.
Do you think it was a mistake not just letting Joe Biden speak more and letting the public...
I don't know if it's a mistake or not, but I'd let him speak all he wants. Every time Joe Biden, and maybe that's why the campaign puts a lid on it about every, what'd they do in the 2 weeks prior, half of all the days would put a lid on by 10 a.m. Joe Biden usually gets in trouble not by somebody asking a question, but just by he's talking. So the more he talks, I think the stronger President Trump's campaign is. Then just run on the facts. Run on the record. You know, Joe Biden has a long record, 47 years inside the Senate. Put that in perspective. When Joe Biden went to the Senate, there were people in the Senate who were born in the 1800s. Think of all the things Joe Biden won't tell you. Why won't he? Why won't he name one law enforcement officer who would endorse him? Why wouldn't he tell the American public more about his son when he was vice president? Why did you bring your son on a government airplane to China? Why did your son do business with China? What were you warned by those in the administration about what your son was doing? Now, with new information coming forward, that a person very close to Putin, a wife, provided more than $3.5 million to your son? Instead of just saying no, wouldn't you want the information? Wouldn't you want to come forward? Doesn't the public have a right to know? But more importantly, what are your policies? Because you say one thing during the primary, now you're saying something different. I've never seen anybody flip-flop more. I watched him look a woman in the eye. Said, read my lips to the point of what he would say. That he was going to end fossil fuel. Then he wants to try to say he's for fracking after he said he was opposed to it. He says he's for a Green New Deal, but when it's a debate, no, it's not a Green New Deal. But it still does the same effect to the economy of harming it. He says he's going to raise taxes on the very first day. He also said some very damaging things as well. He also said he thinks poor people are just as smart as white people. Or white kids, I think, to be exact. That's offensive. He also stood as vice president, went to a former KKK's funeral, speaking very highly of him, along with Speaker Pelosi. So yes, I would let Joe Biden talk more. And if I was President Trump, just say what you have done. The strongest economy in the history of the nation. You compare it directly across from the failures of the Joe Biden-Obama administration. You reformed the VA, where hundreds of thousands were harmed and died because of the lack of ability even to get an appointment. You rebuilt the military. There is record after record which President Trump has to run on, and I think it's the strongest ability to win a re-election. Yes?
What are the chances you think the House of Representatives could decide an election? Speaker Pelosi put out a note saying that it was important for her to win state races because right now Republicans control more chambers of Congress in these states and sort of chambers in the states and stuff. So do you think that it could get to the House of Representatives to decide, and should there be an added emphasis on winning these state houses and the state elections?
I'm not quite sure why you want to win the state houses. Maybe I don't understand it correctly. It's one per state.
One vote per state.
It's the members of Congress who vote, does it not?
She was explaining earlier this morning that it could go at one point to where each state gets one vote. So California, the 53, could get
But
one.
that's not a state house. A state house legislative body is in Sacramento. The 53 members who represent California is a federal office in Congress. So I understand she's talking about a state house, but that's a whole different subject. The way the rules read in the Constitution, it comes to the House only if it's a tie, which is really hard to do, but maybe it's possible. It's probably more possible back in 1980 because there was a third-party candidate. I don't see a third-party candidate, so I was voting for one or the other. So probably pretty difficult to get a tie. But if it comes to the House, each state gets one vote. So the makeup, so you have some states that only have one representative, Alaska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana. And then if you look at the number of parties, by the number of states, Republicans have more states than Democrats, even though we're in the minority. But it takes 26 ever to get to become president, and the Senate picks the vice president. There's also a factor in there, if it can't get to that point, the speaker could become president, but they'd have to resign that position as well. And I know she has such hatred for this president that she tries to find every avenue, but I'm not quite sure she understands the ramification of how it works. But I think it's not very likely that it does come to the House.